Coming to you live from a little grass shack in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's the Junior Kekuewa Jr. Show, starring Junior Kekuewa Jr.
I'm tired of this. I want to retire.
Join Junior along with the Wayne Borhe Band as he makes any kind from Hawaii.
Any kind on steroids.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Junior Kekuewa Jr.
How you going? How you going? All right, how are you? Hey. All right, never mind. Well, we want to say aloha and welcome to our podcast. I'm Junior Kekuewa Jr. And on the podcast today, we're going to be talking about some things about your voice. We're going to be talking about that. And, you never know what we're going to bring up because there's been so much in the last so many years. We're just going to leave it at so many years because there's a lot of years. Anyway, but we do want to acknowledge, we do want to start with the attitude of gratitude, as we always do. Not going to go into all the stats or anything like that, but we will say that we are gaining in the younger demographic. So you guys, younger guys, okay, so mahalo, thank you. Males are 78%. Females 22.8% now. So the girls are, and girls are like that. They come and the percentage goes up. We get to like 40% and then they go away and then they come back. And so because our content is not, generally female friendly in the way that it's things that women are interested in. Okay. Men are interested in this stuff because, sometimes I give tips on relationships and, stuff like that. And men find that valuable. We understand, ladies, but we love you. Thank you for being here. All right. And our 18 to 24 demographic is like 4% now. Okay. So that was almost non-existent. And then our solid demographics are from 35 to dead. Okay. So if you are from 35 to of course, you're still here, right? Okay, if you're listening to the podcast. But anyway, all right, on today's podcast. So let me thank you for being here, by the way. And we have new countries. Are we going to do that? Let's just acknowledge our new countries because that's that's important. So in our new countries, our geographic locations, as it were, that's what they call it on the report, and we can see this in real time. Jamaica, Croatia, Morocco, El Salvador, Qatar, and Venezuela. Okay, so those are our new countries. So we'd like to welcome you. Thank you for being here. All right, let's get started with the podcast. Now, this is a law of attraction, right? Comedy podcast. We'll go like some comedy inside. Okay, not too heavy because, some people go, dude, we can't take you serious if you're going to do comedy. And that's the conundrum in my life because I did comedy for 15 years on the radio as a voice actor. And so, that to me, that's my recreation. Okay. And sometimes I like to have fun on the podcast. So we'll see what happens, Hawaiians. All right. So, and if you are on this podcast listening right now, you are an honorary Hawaiian. Okay. That's why I say Hawaiians. All right. So let's talk about it. So, okay. I started the first professional voice training school, or if you want to say a singing school in Hawaii. It was called Voice Master Singing School, and you can look it up. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the journey because this was the beginning of my discovery of confidence through the human voice. Okay, and then it got like real scientific after a few years. Okay, but in the beginning, it was just singing. So how this happened was I, met this girl and she was part of a club, a Filipino club that was doing recordings in Ilocano and Tagalog, and they would sell their recordings and they would, make more recordings. So the whole idea of the club was to make more recordings. So they would do it as a fundraiser, sell their cassettes. In the old days, it was cassettes. And then they would, do their recording again, like put it back into the recording process. And so they did tons of recordings. And this girl was 16. I trained her, which led to everybody else going, hey, because I had a background in classical music. Okay, I had my own teacher, and so I completed my training, and really, I didn't have anything to do with it. because I wasn't going to sing classical music. I was doing regular gigs and stuff here and there, but very, very seldom at that time, at that period in time. And then when this girl came along and whatever, that's when it started. So my career, or let's say the voice school, happened, it wasn't my choice. I did not choose to do that in the beginning. It just kind of happened. I helped one girl, word got around, everybody wanted to be trained because they saw what I did with her. Okay. And the rest, as they say, is history. But that started in 1989. So I've been doing this for 37 plus years, a little over 37 years. And so anyway, I didn't want to talk about that because, it sounds like flexing, right? Like, oh, okay, uncle, you did that. All right. Give uncle a medal, right? No, it's not that, because this is what led to other things. Okay. And it was an interesting journey. Okay, like for example, we did a show. Okay, we did this show that I got my people at the school. So I trained these guys, right? These kids. I wouldn't call them kids because some of them were adults, right? Okay, so they weren't all kids. So let's get the good visual. It was a mix of ages. So we had younger children, and then I had these older people who were adults. And I had them to train, help train the kids because I showed them what to do. And they were really good. And they were singers. They were good singers. They weren't teachers, but I was there. So I did the teaching, and then they did the practice. So they would hold practices and stuff. And, then what we would do is we would take the kids to malls. We would take the kids to shopping centers and just different places, different venues that had stages and stuff like that, right? And have them perform. And their parents came and we thought, I thought at that point, if we did that, that would bring the confidence. Okay. So, and it did. It really did. Okay. But along the way, as we started dealing with these children and adults, okay, I had them bring their voice out. I was like, okay, bring your voice out. Come on, sing louder, sing stronger. And I always made it a point to use the term stronger instead of louder, because louder is like yelling. I mean, like that. So sing stronger. Come on, bring your voice out. And they became confident. And the performance actually, had them. And we noticed that when you put these kids on stage, they automatically level up because they have to. Right? Because they're under pressure. They're under, people are watching. I thought that was what was making them confident. But it wasn't. And I found that out later. But along the way, interesting place that we ended up, okay, which was kind of like, it was kind of really cool for us. So what happened is we had a hula halau that we started in because I had 677 square feet in the original school. Like, it was huge. Okay, and we got into that, that professional location, it's a commercial location. And so we started a halau and whatever. So we had recitals. So I met this guy, and I forgot how the details went down, like how I met this guy. I think what I did was I was looking for a stage, and I went through Waikiki. I think this is the way it went down somehow. And I was looking for a location, and I saw this really cool place. It no longer exists, but it was called the Banana Patch Lounge. Okay. And anyway, it was in this hotel, Miramar Hotel, okay, in Waikiki. And I can say that because they tore it down. It's now the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center. So anyway, but there was a stage there, and there was a nice red curtain. You can see the pictures on Facebook, on Voice Master Singing School on Facebook. Okay, it's all there, like the performance pictures, so you can get a good visual of what that was like. Anyway, but there were some interesting things that were going on. The first thing was that Bruno Mars used to come in and watch my shows. Okay, so I did a show. I did like the first hour, which was like my show, and then. The kids came on and they played for the rest of the evening. So we did 6 to 9. So from 6 to 7, right, it was me. It was, my show. And I used another name at the time, and we're not going to go into all of that. But anyway, it was my show from from 6 to 7, and then the kids from 7 to 9. And so my kids could come and perform, and we invited, the little kids. It was kind of like, I want to say it was the old days, so that, we got permission to bring them in. Because there's a liquor commission thing and laws concerning where alcohol is served and minors. And it had something to do with the time that made it okay or whatever. We got permission anyway. And so the kids came and there was a stage. So the parents would come, and we held recitals there. They weren't really little kids. They were like high schoolers that came in and, participated and somehow, I don't know, I forgot what the rules were, but there were rules and we followed them. And the little kids came in for recitals. So we held recitals there. The parents were thrilled. And when we did the recitals, they gave us the room. So they blocked it off for us for the first hour from 6 to 7. And then they opened to the public after that. Okay, now Bruno Mars's mom was my boss. That's yeah, and she and she has passed away, and I was so sad to find out that she passed away. But she was my boss, and her name was Bernie, and she ran the club. It was she was the manager, and she worked for this general manager of the hotel, which was really interesting because this was an interesting guy. Okay, we're not going to mention his name or anything like that, but it was an interesting situation because he did a lot of guerrilla marketing. Okay. Now, if you don't know what guerrilla marketing is, it's like it's not the marketing you learn in college. Okay. And I've been through so many college people that, they have marketing degrees and whatever. And they come and they work for me and stuff and I hire them. And, the results are like, they're okay, but they're just not like what you would think when you hire someone out of college with a marketing degree. You would think that, wow, business would just come in and, right? Wrong. Okay. But in guerrilla my experience with guerrilla marketing is there's no rules to that. And it's very, you could say unorthodox in a way, sometimes. And so I learned from this guy, who I'm not going to mention his name, but I learned from this guy. And this is what started, it started in my production company and then translated over into my consultant company years later. Okay. But anyway, so I, learned guerrilla marketing. And this guy at the hotel, the general manager, he was very innovative. So here's what he did. So this hotel was on this street in Hawaii called Kuhio Avenue, which back in the old days was a hangout for prostitutes. Because if you wanted a prostitute for whatever reason, it could have been research. It could have been like, well, what's it like being here? And, you could interview. I'm just saying, all right, we want to keep this show clean because, like I said, kids are listening now. All right, young people. All right. So anyway. But anyway, so that was the hangout for these ladies of the evening and, their associates and whatever. Okay, so these ladies you would see them like walking through the lobby, like all the time. And what I learned was, I was inquiring about parking. And so, the front desk person goes, well, the girls have the first level of parking, but you can park, over here. And I'm like, the girls? And he goes, yeah, you see those hookers on the side? I'm like, yeah. Well, here's what was going down. So the hookers, right? And then, so this is like off the record, okay? But I'm telling you. It's just between me and you, okay? But so the hookers, this was genius. I think it was genius. There was nothing illegal about this, right? But the hookers got free parking, okay? The hookers could park free. And this is marketing, right? The hookers park free, right, at the hotel. And this was a small hotel. This wasn't like a Hilton, it wasn't like a huge hotel. It was a small hotel. So the girls could park free, right? But then they would rent the rooms, right? And whatever. And it wasn't illegal in the sense that, the hotel was doing something illegal. They were just renting rooms. They rent to anybody, right? Okay, so but that was ingenious. And I thought, wow. So the girls get, free parking, right? But then they bring the guys to the hotel. They rent the hotel room. They do whatever like that. And I thought, wow, that was ingenious. So that made the hotel a lot of money. Well, steady business anyway. And so that was the funny part. We always saw these hookers walking through walking past the club. They didn't come in the club or anything. We didn't see anything like that. And they weren't around the kids or anything. So it was just something interesting that that happened that we saw along our journey. So the kids, would come in and they would do their thing and, I would do my show. Bruno Mars, who was like in his early 20s, used to come in and sit at the bar and used to watch my show. Now, I never got to know him. I never, because he was so young, and he was quiet. He was very quiet, never said anything, never said hi to anybody or whatever. And he wasn't, and I'm not saying that this was in an arrogant way or anything like. He was a nice guy. I said hi to him on a couple of occasions. He was very friendly. But I'm saying that he wasn't like out there. He wasn't, an extrovert in that sense. He was more introverted, sitting there, just kind of laid back and enjoying the show. And he would watch me play and stuff like that, and we would never think, right? We knew that he was little Bruno. We knew that he was that little Elvis guy from Waikiki, and that era was done for him. He was doing music. He was doing, things here and there in Waikiki. But we always knew that he had this talent. And then, years later, boom, right? So we were like so happy. We were so happy for Bruno. Anyway, but so he came in, and that was one of the things. And, so that's the kind of environment it was anyway. It was in Waikiki. And then these kids started getting confident. Okay, now here's the science behind that. We're going to discuss the science, because it wasn't until, so this was like in the early 2000s. Okay, so this was like, I think it was 2001, 2002, something like that. But anyway, so it wasn't until 2007 that I was like, all right, let's do the research. Okay, let's do this research, because it wasn't, just enough that people were getting confident. I wanted to know why. I was curious because I saw some unreal things. I mean, some out of the box kind of things, right? Like these little kids. I remember this one little girl. Her picture is still on Facebook. And of course I can't, show it to you here, but you can look over there. She's standing like she wants to fight, puffing out her chest, like she wants to fight when she was singing. When she came to me, 3 months prior, she was like very shy, like wouldn't talk, wouldn't sing. Well, she would sing a little, but she wouldn't talk. And here's the thing that happens with the kids, the young kids that I've taught, and I've taught over 7,000 people in 37 years. We used to have like, excuse me, we used to teach. So here's some background on the school before we continue. So the background on the school is when we first taught, it was like, we taught for 3 years, 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and the school was packed. I mean, we had, a few openings, but we taught a lot of people. And then my Hanai daughter, who started the business with me, there were 3 of us, okay, and Wayne, he was like my Hanai brother. Okay, so me, my Hanai brother, and my Hanai daughter, we started this school. And anyway, so then at that point, right, my Hanai daughter goes, Dad, she called me Dad. She goes, Dad, can we have a day off? And I was like, because we looked at it like a second home. Okay, except she, I guess, wanted a day off at that point or whatever. Maybe she didn't look at that. She didn't say anything. She never complained or anything like that. So, I never thought anything. We just made it our second home. And and she goes, can we have a day off? And I'm like, oh, sure, yeah. And then she goes, Dad, it's been 3 years. And I was like, oh. And, I didn't think about it. Right? Because to me, like when we started, because we were teaching at home, I had a recording studio in my house, and I rented the house, and I had been teaching there, and then some things happened, and so anyway, but that's another podcast, Hawaiians. Okay, that's another podcast. But anyway. But that happened, and now we're in a professional venue, and then so it was kind of like it was our home, and we put vending machines in there. We had like everything in there, like you name it. Like we could self-sustain in that space, in that business. We had an ice box. We had everything. We could self-sustain in that thing in an emergency. I mean, that kind of. The only thing we didn't have was showers. That was the only thing we didn't have. But anyway, we had everything else. All the comforts of home, and that's where we were. And so from 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening for 3 years, we just did that. Then we took Mondays off. So anyway, I just thought that was a fun fact to put in there. But here's the thing, right? And this is how we looked at it. So I mean, at least Wayne and I looked at it this way, because the people that live for the week. So this is the life coaching part. You might want to write these down, Hawaiians. So the people that live for the weekend. They can't wait for the weekend. They live for the weekend, right? And then they need to go back to work. Okay, we were the opposite. We were like, never mind the weekend. Like, let's go to work. So we just worked, but it was something that we loved. Okay, so here's the moral of that part of the story. Okay, and that part of the story is you got to do something you love, and then you won't work. You won't work a day in your life if you love what you do. And we loved it. We loved the kids. We loved the adults. We met some outstanding people, some really, really good people. And you know what? Like, we started adopting this type of attitude. And the attitude was, once a customer, always a friend. Until today. The kids, they pop in. Now the kids are like in their 30s, in their early 40s. They pop in and they send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Hey, uncle, guess what I'm doing? They follow up and, like, let me know and update and whatever. And that, we consider that really special. Anyway, so that happened. All right. And then so back to the confidence. So this little girl started the whole thing with me, and she was so shy and so quiet. All of a sudden, in a couple of months, she's puffing out her chest, singing like she wants to fight, right? And I mean, with conviction. I mean, like she was doing everything on purpose. And her mom just was beaming in the corner because the parents used to come in. We had a parents' chair. And so the parents came in the studio and they sat there and they watched me train their kids. And we thought that was important because we wanted the parents to enforce what we were teaching. So in other words, if they saw what kind of exercises they were doing, and then we would tell the parents, make sure they do this. And we would give them exercises or sound files or whatever it took. And we would tell the parents, okay, have them work on this song and then remind them like I reminded them with the things I reminded them of and, yada, yada. So we included the families. We included the parents. That was really important for us because when you include parents, when you get them involved, okay, for little kids and even teenagers, but little kids especially, right? The guidance is there. And then it helps move them forward with confidence. We thought at the time, okay, but there's more to that, okay? There is much, much more to that. So here's the thing, right? When you have stress, when you have, let's say, call it trauma, let's call it drama, let's call it, bad stuff going on that you remember, okay? What's really happening is all of these things get stored in your body. Okay, in your nervous system, okay? Your nervous system stays in like fight or flight mode for those things. And then you get the triggers. And these triggers lead to a reoccurrence of that feeling in your nervous system. So and I did not know any of this until 2007. So here I am from 1989 till 2007, just, watching this confidence happen. And the teaching, I want to say the teaching was progressive. It was spiritual in the way that I was just sitting there. I was witnessing these things, and it was like God going, see, you see. And I'm very spiritual inside, okay? Not religious, but spiritual, okay? Because God guides my life. And I understand, I have a different understanding with esoteric knowledge and blah, 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 whatever. Okay, but let's just say that, I was watching this and I was thinking about it in the spiritual sense. Okay, but here's what's really happening. When you are in fight or flight, okay, or when you get triggered and stuff, your nervous system, okay, your muscles get tense, your breathing becomes shallow, okay, your mind becomes reactive, you start looking for problems, okay, but this is how the human being is designed. All right, here's the life coaching part. You guys, okay, take notes. You guys should be taking notes right now, okay? So here's what happens. When you start to relax, your exhale lengthens. So as these kids started to relax, and these adults, okay, they started holding their notes longer. And their pharyngeal muscles got stronger, which actually, I don't want to get too technical, but it deals with muscles. So we train muscles first. We develop muscles first. This makes us different than the YouTube guys. I mean, I don't teach voice like that. I teach voice in a different form. And doctors, I have so many doctors that are my clients because I save them from burnout, right? I have a psychologist, I've had psychiatrists, I've had, oh my God, internists, emergency room doctors, all kinds of doctors, right? And they know what this is. When I do it with them, they see it for what it really is: nervous system regulation. Okay, but I've been teaching voice this way for a long, long time. I never really got into the classical music form of teaching because it's a little different for reasons, like that's not a podcast, Hawaiian scale, but for different reasons. Okay, one of which is like you're going to sing classical music pronunciation and sound opera-ish around the edges. Okay, so I never was on board with that. I saw these things at my recitals, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, not going to do that. Anyway, but vocalization creates internal vibration, and that vibration looses areas of chronic contraction. What does that mean? The tight muscles, all of that. So you start to relax. It brings awareness, okay, to where the tension is held in your nervous system. Okay, what else? Well, it allows the body to let go without forcing it, okay? Let go of the tension, let go of the stress, okay? And it breaks up the neural pathways that were formed with this emotion that was created out of the stress, out of the trauma, out of all of that, right? Now, nobody else does this, okay? So, and there's a way to do it because you need to listen to the voice. The voice will tell you. The length of the tones will tell you where they're at. Okay, and then I ask questions like, how's your triggers? I ask all my clients, like, how's your triggers? And stuff like that, right? And they, week to week to week, it's better and better and better. So I have two companies. So this right here, this podcast belongs to Here For You Life Coaching. Okay. And you can get us you can read all about this at hereforyoulifecoaching.com. Just click on it. All the, everything is there. Anyway, but the other company is Voice Master. It was Voice Master Singing School. Now it's Voice Master Vocal Development, and the science is on the page. So you can actually go to research links and read the white papers. White papers are papers that are written by doctors and research people and PhDs and, whatever. People that are, let's say qualified to discuss these things or qualified to do the research in these areas and, have been through college and science and all that stuff. Stuff that I was too busy to do because I was working on other things. I mean, things I love, which wasn't science at the time. Anyway, but people start to feel lighter when this happens. Why? Well, because they drop their stress. Stress goes away. What does that do? Well, it frees them up on the inside. And what does that do? Well, that allows them to be them and to fulfill their life path. Okay? So whatever it is inside gets held back by stress, chronic stress, right? And these things happen as a result of trauma, as a result of whatever, like family tensions or a toxic work environment or toxic people or toxic family members, whatever. All of these things, all of the negative emotions are rooted in fear. This process gets rid of fear. Okay. So basically a chronic stress loop is like thought, emotion, body reaction, and then reinforced thought. How does that work? Well, first you get the thought, bad thought. Okay. Let's call it negative thought. Then you get a negative emotion. Why? Because it's a negative thought. Okay. Then you get a body reaction. Oh, tense, shallow breathing, whatever, everything I described, right? And then you get reinforced thought. What does that mean? That's the judgment. That's when you go, oh yeah, that was bad. Okay. Now, if it's a positive loop, okay, because this is the loop, it's a stress loop, but it's also a positive loop if everything is positive. Positive thought, positive emotion, positive body reaction, right? You feel happy, you feel whatever, you feel excited, that electric feeling going through your body, right? And then reinforced thought is what? Oh, this is good, right? So now if it's good, what does that do? It creates your feedback loop, okay? A positive feedback loop. The feedback is the reinforced thought at the end of the loop that creates the loop. Now, what does your subconscious do? It goes, okay, let's look for more things that will make this loop happen. That's basically an overview. It's a shallow overview, but yeah, it's something you can understand. Okay, so then what happens? Well, your inclination towards positive loops is greater now. And now you're going to have more good experiences. Why? Because now you're focused on positivity. So I always taught this at the school, okay? But until 2007, I did not understand how this worked. Okay, I knew it. I knew the repetition thing worked. Okay, I knew a lot of other things worked. I did not know the psychology behind it. Okay, so instead of trying to change the thought first, right, to like, okay, I'm going to be positive, you change the physiology. Okay, you calm the nervous system. You create a new internal signal. How do you do this? By the vocalization exercise that we do. So when we were doing this for the singers, we go, oh, wow, we need to share this with the everyday person. Why? Because it gets rid of anxiety, okay? If people get off their anxiety meds, people have gotten off their depression meds, people have gotten off their, tons of meds. They've left treatment. I mean, they've left, and so we want to say that we don't make medical claims, okay? We got to say that legally, because we don't want to get sued by the AMA. But here's the thing. They've left therapy. Tons of people that I've had. They go to therapy, and pretty soon they feel good. They feel good. They just, and they tell their therapist, well, we'll be back when, whatever. And they, as far as I know, the ones that have gotten out or have left have not been back. So here's the other thing, right? I have a couple of psychologists in my area that refer people to me. And one of the guys I know, right? And of course, there are HIPAA laws, okay? So they can't tell me. I mean, and the people that come to me don't always tell me, okay? But then this doctor who's a friend of mine, and we get together and we talk. And, one day we got together for coffee, and I said, you really should look into this and this, whatever. And I described the whole thing that I just told you. And he goes, dude, I've been sending people to you for years. And I was like, whoa. That was such a huge compliment because he's a PhD. He's a psychologist. He's a therapist, right? So, and people go to him. He was sending people to me for a long time. I had no knowledge of this, and I'm not supposed to. And it was good. I'm all good with that. Okay, but basically what this is, okay, so in actuality, this is resetting your baseline. What's your baseline? Well, this is the part that people miss. So this is not about a temporary calming. This is not about singing and feeling good, although that does happen in the first session. Okay, it's about repetition. It's about when you do cycles of this, right? Cycles, not treatments, because this is not a medical procedure, although it does have psychological results. Okay, so anyway, and we make no medical claims. I'm going to say that again. But anyway, what I'm talking about, Hawaiians, okay, is when you do this process, okay, for 12 weeks, count them, 12. Okay, it's a 12-week process. When you do this 12-week process, you pull yourself out of this. And when you pull yourself out, guess what happens? Awareness, a greater awareness. What is that part? Well, to me, that's the spiritual part. But I can't talk to the doctors that I serve like that. I can't talk to the professionals that I serve like that because they are more scientific. When you start going woo-woo on them, they're like, what? And they kind of disconnect from the thinking, okay, because they're more left brain, more logic oriented. So, and rooted in science and, yada, yada. But this is, to me anyway, my personal opinion, a spiritual thing. Why? Because you're not your body, you're not your name, you're that spirit that lives in your body. And one day your body is going to be too old. Your body is the vessel. And one day that vessel is just going to give out. Why? Because it's going to expire. And then what happens? Well, Einstein told you, right? Energy. You can't destroy it. It doesn't do that. What does it do? It leaves your body. Where does it go? Nobody really knows. And if they know, they're not telling us. Does it matter? No. What matters is you max out this life. Okay? Hawaiians, you live this way one time. That's it. One time this way. Now, whether you come back as another human, whether you come back as a puppy, whether you come back as a lily pad or a tree, we don't know. Okay? But what's important is that you make the most out of this life. Okay? My stepdad used to tell me all the time. He used to start the conversation with, in this life. And then he would give me advice. I mean, he gave me some profound, heavy philosophical advice. Okay, and I didn't know where he got this from. I never saw him enter a church or a temple. He was a Buddhist, but I never saw him go to temple. He went to funerals, I mean, that kind of thing, right? But I never saw him go, like, to participate in the thing and, the religious aspect of it or whatever. But he used to always preface that, and I thought it was interesting. Okay, it was very, very interesting. But anyway, once you do this, 12 weeks, and you are a different person. Why? Well, because you're not that person that's agitated. Let's call it agitation. Let's call it frazzled. Let's call it bothered or troubled. Okay, I have a lot of clients come to me like that. And the way they leave is calm. I mean, some of them attribute it to other things. Some of them, I asked them, like, how do you feel? And they go, oh, well, I started this yoga program and they think it's yoga. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. I know what it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me in one sense, in the sense that they're better. It doesn't matter. But in the sense that people don't know about this, okay? Now, if let's say other voice teachers or other people that, work with frequency or the voice or yada yada, find out about it, then I would have competition, right? I would have a lot of competition. And that would probably, I remember when I started the voice school, getting back to the voice school, here we go. I started the voice school and we were the first people in the phone book. We were the first commercial voice school in the state of Hawaii. Okay, Voice Master Singing School. You can look it up. Okay, so this was in 1989. Okay, fast forward, the next year, there were 12 people in the phone book. How did this happen? Well, the salespeople that were selling to me went out and created competition for me. I mean, yeah, when you look at it, I could have sued the phone company for, whatever. It's neither here nor there. But what I'm telling you is that they created competition for me because in order to sell more ads, what did they do? They went to other musicians. They go, oh, you guys should offer voice. Look, these guys have a voice ad. And it gives them an idea. Okay, now they start teaching voice. I had a background in voice. I had training in voice. Okay, I had a background in classical music to, do classical music and whatever. But these guys were like guitar players and piano players and whatever. There was this one guy that trained a very prominent girl because she got on to American Idol. And I saw her performance and I'm like, wow, if I could have trained her, she would have had enough power to hit those high notes. And that was the only reason why I think she didn't make it to be the American Idol, because she was in the top 3, then she was in the top 2, and I think she was the second runner. I think she was the runner-up. But anyway, whatever. It's not important. But you start with muscles, okay, because where the body goes, the mind follows. You get physical improvements, then you get mental improvements. Okay, let's say it another way. You get physical improvements to allow what's inside to come out. Because you gotta break up that nervous system regulation thing. You gotta break up that junk in the nervous system. Okay, so there is a neural pathway that was formed by the emotion. Okay, now this is getting a little more scientific. And so that's the neuroplasticity end. On the subconscious end, you have repetition and emotion. Okay, so when something happens and you have an emotion, okay, like I said, the negative feedback loop, okay, then it reinforces everything. It reinforces the neuroplasticity. Then that connection gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay, but what do people do? Well, they go get medicine. What does the medicine do? It just relaxes you temporarily. And what happens when that wears off? Well, you just take more medicine. Okay, and then you're on this medicine thing. Now, do some people need medicine? Yes, absolutely. Okay, am I dismissing medicine or the medical community or big pharma or the pharmaceutical companies? No. I take medicine for stuff. I take medicine. I have asthma. Okay, so, I mean, let me tell you, Hawaiians, my emergency inhaler is very handy, okay? And sometimes you can hear my asthma on the podcast, okay? I'm not gonna hide or deny that. I've had asthma my whole life. So, yeah, so if you hear my asthma, sometimes just, excuse me. But, yeah, no, medicine is important. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Now, there's some cases or some, instances where you don't need medicine. You can help yourself. Okay. But you can help yourself with this. And because I saw this, so I did like 37-year case studies with singers. I don't tell my singers, I don't tell all of them about this. Okay. Sometimes, with some of my military people, and they come in for singing because they know it's relaxing, but they have PTSD. And then I kind of address everything and I kind of move them over into life coaching. And guess what happens with them? Okay, their triggers go down. Their triggers soften. They go into malls, right? Because they go into malls. People that have been into war, like these military people, the vets that come back, and they're young. They're young vets, right? They do their couple tours, whatever, and they get out. Okay, they go to war and they get all this PTSD, and it's terrible. The things that happen in war, right? When people are shooting at you, your anxiety levels. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Okay, I can't even imagine the fear that goes through someone when, and yeah, they're conditioned to take it. They're conditioned to deal with it. They're trained for that, right? Okay, but here's the thing, right? When they come back into civilization, now they have to go to the mall. There's tons of people in the mall. Guess what happens? They start to think that there could be an enemy amongst these people. And that's a natural thing if you come out of war. Okay, so what happens? Panic attacks, right? I mean, like they go into sweats. They go into like panic mode. And this is the fight or flight. Okay? This is that negative thought loop, but it's deeper than that because it's more traumatic than that. It's deep trauma. Now, does it cure this? No, it doesn't. But it softens the triggers, okay? And I teach them a certain breathing. They start doing the deep breathing. They relax, and guess what? Eventually, they can walk through the mall. Okay. Now, they're still on alert a little. Okay. That never goes away, but they can deal with it. Okay. And that's what's important. When you have that switch, I call it the switch. When you have that switch that you can turn off the switch and you can go, okay, no, I got this. And you take a few deep breaths and you stop and you collect yourself, right? And you get a little bit more, right? Contained, a little bit more like, okay, it's okay. Then you do it, right? That's priceless. Why? Well, because before they had to get out of the mall. And they tell me that. They go, I go in the mall and I start seeing these people. And after a while, like a few minutes or whatever, like it gets to me. I can't stay in the mall. I got to leave. That's the kind of stuff they tell me in the beginning. After that, they go, wow. I can actually walk through the mall now. And that's a big deal. We take that for granted, right? Okay. But most of us have never gotten shot at like that or whatever, grenades, all of that. I mean, come on, that's serious trauma. I can't even pretend to understand what that's like. Okay. But I'm just saying that this is my experience with military personnel and PTSD. And I do it through the human voice. Okay. So the whole process is affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization. So it's not just the voice. The voice is the vocalization part, okay? But these doctors that I have come in contact with, when I explain this, they find it kind of amusing. They go, wow, you taught people how to sing through nervous system regulation? Because I don't teach like a voice teacher teaches, right? Because I saw these voice teachers. No offense to them or anything. They're doing their thing. They're doing their thing that they learned in college, okay? But I saw through the let's say the mechanics of everything, and I go, okay, well, people need this. They don't need that. Like every human being can sing. How's that? Well, I have a doctor that couldn't sing, okay? And she's singing now, okay? I'll just say that because everything's confidential, okay? But I'll just say that. She's singing after 2 months with me. She's singing, okay? So here's the thing. It's pattern recognition, okay? It's tone memorization, and then it's concept of melody. That's all it is. Well, I had to look at it like that, and then I go, okay, well, if we regulate their nervous system, what happens? Well, they're relaxed inside. If they're relaxed inside, can they follow a melody? Oh, yeah, sure. Because they're following the radio. Now, the people that are singing off key, they're not singing in pitch, whatever, right? Okay, tone memorization. Your brain memorizes tone just the same way it memorizes words for a speech, okay? And what's the other one? concept of melody. Now that I memorized all these individual tones, how do I put them together in a melody? Dun, 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 dun. Right? Whatever. Okay? Like that. Okay? And pretty soon, guess what? Through pattern recognition, your brain goes, oh, okay, I got it. And you do it with the artist. So I have the buddy system, right? I have them sing with lyrics version, okay, on YouTube. You guys can try this, okay? Because I can't take everybody, right? I can't schedule everybody. I don't have that much of a working day, okay? I can't teach the world, okay? But if you guys want to try this, go do the lyrics version on YouTube, right? And follow the singer. Follow that pattern with your voice. It's just a little awkward because it's your voice. It's not your hand. It's not, you're not drawing dot to dot, okay? You're doing it with your voice dot to dot. Maybe that's a good, I don't know, example. Maybe not for some people. But anyway, try it, okay? Do it in your car or whatever, because you have a playlist, right? You can do a YouTube playlist in your car, okay? So try it with that. Okay, when you get good at that, if you really want to take it a step further, then contact me. Go to the school. Okay, voicemaster.org is the school. Okay, so the life coaching is here. Okay, so it's here for you, lifecoaching.com. All right, if you come to the life coaching, you're going to get affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization. If you go to the voice school, you're going to get vocalization. That's it. Will that allow you to sing? Yes, like a bird. Okay? Well, maybe not like a bird. Maybe like a good human. All right, so there you go, Hawaiians. There you go. So what did it take for me to put this all together? Just a little analysis, okay? But I had to go down a lot of rabbit holes in 2007. And this is bringing the podcast full circle. Okay, in 2007, I did the research. Why? Because this one little girl was standing there puffing her chest out and reminded me that I saw these kinds of things going on, and I didn't really understand why. Because people, generalize it, right? They go, well, when you sing in front of people or you stand in front of people and talk, you become more confident. Okay, yes, the pressure is one thing, right? Because they're under pressure. And the more they do, the more they get used to it, and then they can speak in front of people, right? And they call that confidence. This is different. This is nervous system regulation. It pulls all the crap out of your nervous system. Then what happens? It's like a reset. So spiritually, what I say is when you pull out the crap, you're left with who you are, right? And you know what to do at your job, right? I had a surgeon. And this guy's an internationally known surgeon. I'm not even going to say what kind of surgeon, okay? But he was a surgeon. He came to me, and guess what? He became a better surgeon. Why? Because we pulled all the tension out of his nervous system, okay? Can you imagine what that does for a surgeon, okay? We always say, right, oh, he has hands like a surgeon, which means he's steady and whatever. Like, yeah, he became a better surgeon. Okay, I've had doctors that became better doctors. I've had lawyers that have become better lawyers. So it doesn't matter what you do, you become better. Why? Well, because we cleanse your nervous system. We get all this stuff out, right? In 12 weeks, you're like, whoa, what is this, right? There was this one guy that got scared. He was a medical professional. He was a doctor. I think because of what he felt, because he didn't know. Like I asked him, because I thought, he was a brain guy. He was a psychiatrist. And I asked him, and I said, Doc, you feel it? Right? And he was going to yoga. He was doing this Kundalini thing, whatever. He was kind of like going along that route, spiritually, with that kind of spiritualism. And when he did this, like he couldn't explain it. He goes, wow, he goes, I feel it, but I can't put my finger on it. And that was it. And I think it scared him. Because there's all this talk about the Kundalini and this and this and that, whatever. No, this is not that. This is your nervous system. This is not, a demon or an angel or anything like that. It's not angels and demons. It's your nervous system. It's your subconscious, okay? And it's your conscious mind, okay? This is all what is in you. This is how the human being is designed. That's what this is, okay? And yes, I've been teaching voice this way ever since I found out about it. And when I found out about it, I put more emphasis on nervous system regulation. And guess what? It works on every living human being. Okay. So if you have problems with anxiety, if you have fear problems, if you have, let's call it things stored in your nervous system. Okay. So that could be a high stress job. All of this stuff. Okay. Hit me up on the website. Okay. Because I can help you. I can pull you out of it. And this is why I serve professionals, because they have these issues. Okay. So all you got to do is go to hereforyouLifeCoaching.com. Okay. And I can help you get through all of this. Okay. Now, I must tell you that this is going to take 12 weeks. Okay. I had this one guy recently that was a professional that came to me because he was losing his voice, and his wife told him, right? He was listening to his wife, and his wife told him that he should go find, some sort of vocal development, whatever. He had heard of me. He heard of my entertainment career, but he had no knowledge that I was a teacher. So I did the entertainment career for my fun and games, because that was for me. And yeah, that was selfish. I am actually a teacher, have been, way before I did entertainment, like way. Okay. So anyway, he comes to me, right? And that's the next podcast, Hawaiians. But he came to me and he did not know that he was so stressed out until I got done with him. Yeah. All right. Okay, Hawaiians. Hey, yeah, the website. Okay. And then we'd like to thank Voice Master Family of Service Companies for editing, because that's what makes this podcast possible. Okay, as well as Darren Chinen on AFM Hawaii Music. That's another company of ours. So we'd like to tell you to go to afmhawaiimusic.com and check it out. Till next time, I'm Junior Kekuewa Jr. saying mahalo and